Welcome, and we want to get things going here. So first of all, we'd like to acknowledge that many Indigenous nations have longstanding relationships, both historic and modern, with the territories upon which we are located. Today, this area is home to many Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. We acknowledge that our watershed forms a part of the treaty and traditional territory of the southeastern Anishinaabe. It is on these ancestral and treaty lands that we live and work. To honor this legacy, we commit to being stewards of the natural environment and undertake to have a relationship of respect with our treaty partners. Okay, so can I get a motion to adopt the agenda, please? Jerry? Okay. Great. And all in favor? Carried. Tracy, sorry. Okay, and any declarations of pecuniary interest? None seen. Okay, can I have a motion to adopt the minutes of the last meeting? Peter? Jerry? All in favor? Carried. Good. Okay, any business arising from the minutes? Any questions, concerns? No. Okay. We don't have any deputations. So we're on to presentations. 6.1 Regional Conservation and Climate Change Partnership presentation. Zoe Madger.
I'm Zoe.
Okay, she's going to come on though.
Yesterday she would play virtually.
Okay, great. Well, we'll just wait for Zoe then and we'll move on.
Oh, looks like she is just joining us.
Oh, okay. Hi, Zoe. Are you there? Oh, I see the logo for the,
Just connecting to the audio
Yeah.
right now, so.
okay, we'll just wait for a sec. It's a really exciting initiative, so
Yeah.
I think you'll all enjoy it.
Well, it looks like she is connected to audio now, so I think Zoe should be able to join us now, and we just need her video. There we go.
She is. Hi, Zoe.
Good.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Awesome.
So we look forward to your presentation. You can start whenever you're ready.
Okay, excellent. I will.
I know it's hard. I don't know which one to.
Okay. Let's see. There we go. How's that working?
Great.
Okay, perfect. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zoe Mager. I am the director and convener of the a new regional conservation and climate partnership that's being hosted currently through Kawartha Land Trust. And I appreciate the invitation to speak to you this afternoon. I apologize that I wasn't able to before. We were dealing with one of the onslaught of toddler illnesses. But yeah, I'm really glad to connect this afternoon and share a little bit about our still very emerging initiative. But I was able to connect with Kawartha Conservation a bunch of months ago now. I can't remember exactly when we met all in that same boardroom, but to share some early, when we were kind of just having some early conversations about this process, and it's still very much in kind of a formative stage, and we're figuring out what kind of getting towards a more finalized structure, but I'm excited to share what we have, at least with you for now. So this is kind of our key question, is how can we align our efforts and work together to have a greater impact on ecological and social resilience in the Kawarthas? This is kind of a guiding, overarching guiding question that obviously is very broad and starts from a a really kind of expansive and holistic approach, and we're working towards kind of creating measurable goals, impact goals that will come out of this process, but starting from like a pretty eagle eye view. And the vision that we have started with is bringing together diverse partners in the kind of conservation and climate sectors, and those associated, kind of recreation, health, those who are whose work is connected to land and dependence on land, and communities who are doing kind of land-based work in a broad sense, and bringing folks together to think about how we can align our efforts and grow our impact by working together. And of course, coming particularly out of the directives from the Montreal Kunming Biodiversity Conference, to really address some of the crises that we're facing here, as well as everywhere across the globe, which are biodiversity and habitat loss, and associated climate impacts. So just a kind of brief overview of my presentation today, looking into where this kind of idea has come from, the history of RCPs in general, and a brief history of this process and our project, thinking about why we're wanting to bring this approach to the Kawarthas, and build off of what is already happening in the Kawarthas, and who we kind of envision being part of it, and then a bit kind of delving into our collective impact approach that we're taking more specifically. So in terms of this regional conservation partnership, or as we've adapted to explicitly bring in climate, regional conservation and climate partnership, this is a kind of structure of regional conservation partnerships, or like whole landscape conservation, that has been practiced for some time in the States, has good federal support, funding support in the States. There's over 500 RCPs in the States. They don't explicitly bring in the climate piece, but a lot of it is working across sectors. So beyond conservation, kind of looking at agriculture, forestry, and then also kind of bringing in communities and urban green space as well. But in the States, and particularly in the Northeast, where there's a ton of RCPs, there are also a lot of land trusts and private land conservation organizations. And also, obviously, in Ontario, we have a different context with conservation authorities. So the model that we're kind of building off of is very focused on this matrix of many overlapping land trusts who need to kind of get on the same page and work together. But we know that within our region, there's a ton of really excellent formal and informal collaboration that's already happening, but thinking about bringing it up to a larger scale of really a region-wide approach could be very beneficial, and indeed, I think from many different perspectives, not least of which I think funding perspectives, we need more collaboration in order to scale up our impact to kind of meet the challenges that we're facing today that are pretty overwhelming. And so I think really bringing in this kind of conservation approach, understanding climate as a key piece of that, and the inextricability of conservation work and climate work, and then of course like people and health and equity as well. So yeah, as I had mentioned, kind of really trying to address within our region, I think something that's unique about our region that, I think a lot of this work we're kind of looking at in contrast to other places such as the GTA, where we have an opportunity in this region to really protect some incredible lands that that opportunity still exists for us. So it's a bit more proactive than reactive, although there's of course development pressures and pressures on agricultural lands, and we want to just see a proactive approach to addressing that and to preserving what we have, as well as mitigating impacts of climate change and connecting into the larger kind of global offsetting of climate change. And so we really see that opportunity and want to make use of it, and also make use of the incredible resources in terms of personnel and organizations and strong relationships and First Nations leadership in our region. I think there's so much here, and so coordinating efforts is is like not easy or quick or straightforward always, but we see it as incredibly integral to this work. So when I talk about the region, I guess, yeah, one piece is Kawartha Land Trust has kind of seen a need and heard a need from collaborating, our existing collaborations and relationships. And so in partnership with a new-ish national organization called the Center for Land Conservation, we've kind of come up with this pilot or like prototype of this model based off of what we've seen in the States. And we have funding from a private foundation for 3 years, which includes, the role of a full-time convener and director, as well as support for get-togethers, and hopefully we're working on increasing, we're applying for funding right now so that we can actually also support, we intend to support some of the projects that are coming out of this, and recognizing that partnership capacity or like partner capacity is a key piece of this, and that everyone's very busy and have full plates already. So yeah, we're really seeking to, first of all, extend the project beyond, just the 3 years that are already funded, as well as really support partners to be able to take on this work and align it with work that's already existing. And so, one example of this is KCA's, I know you're working on the implementation strategy for your climate change work, and I think that a lot of others are in a similar place. So finding ways to align with what's already happening that's working, either in terms of collaborations or in terms of mandates, and then also support more work to happen. So yeah, all that is to say, Kawartha Land Trust kind of saw the need, created, partnered and found funding for this to launch it. But the longer term intention is to not have it be a Kawartha Land Trust led initiative, that this partnership will develop an identity of its own. But as a starting place, we've kind of used the existing boundaries that we work with, that KLT works with, which is, basically Peterborough County and City of Kawartha Lakes. And so the region might change in terms of based off of also who wants to be a part of this work. So in terms of this kind of collective impact approach that we're taking, we're wanting to make sure that this process really takes a systems approach, and to bring in lots of different organizations that either currently or potentially in the future could benefit from being part of more collaborative work, and to really have the intention be, greater collaboration for greater impact, and kind of have the whole be more than the sum of its parts. And so this is kind of just like a visual of how we can, as we get more aligned in terms of what our goals are, and or find where goals are aligned, that we can really do more together, and kind of create these functions. So the backbone function is something that KLT is working on, and then create these shared metrics, ongoing communication, common agenda, and mutually reinforcing activities. That doesn't mean that we're necessarily going to create like a specific strategic plan or say everyone has to be on the exact same page about everything. I think it's actually a really key part of this work is bringing in a diversity of views and sometimes even potentially divergent views, but really leaving some of the potentially like, previous complexities at the door, or recognizing that we don't need to all think and act and have the exact same mandate in order to do good work together. And nor would individual organizations need to kind of relay specific communications or policy pieces, or I think it's just like finding those pieces where it connects for groups to different configurations of groups to work together. And so yeah, just kind of another piece of where we see this work going. There is, we recently, 2 weeks ago today, we had a kickoff event. A couple of wonderful KCA folks were there and participating. And there was a really strong sense of urgency in the room of like, we need to do this yesterday. And so, but also, some kind of words of wisdom of like, we also have to have a strong foundation of relationship. And so there is that relationship that exists in many cases, but I think at the baseline, we want to really create a strong network so that different organizations can be aware at the very least of what's going on in the community and within the sectors, kind of cross-sectorally, and then begin to build on those relationships to identify where there could be mutually reinforcing opportunities or support each other's work or initiating new projects together. So yeah, I think in terms of it's kind of a big tent approach right now, and we're still in conversation within our kind of small group about what could this work look like. I think we're definitely trying to balance some existing opportunities that we kind of want to go with. There's some smaller collaboratives that already exist that are kind of sector-based collaboratives and partnerships that KLT is already involved in that we're wanting to support because there's already momentum there. But as well to bring in this broader systems approach and a whole landscape and kind of regional approach as this work kind of evolves. And part of it is kind of trusting in the process and also making sure that we are getting some wins, early wins as we go. And so in terms of what's next, as I said, we're just quickly kind of trying to do some sense making out of the kickoff event that just happened, and going to be convening interested partners moving forward. So I hope that wasn't too much time, but thanks so much for the opportunity to share some of this early work. And yeah, I don't know if anyone has any questions or yeah, thanks very much.
Well, thanks, Zoe. And I really enjoyed getting together with everybody. It was really heartening to be in a room full of environmentalists. It was quite a nice day. And what I was saying, and the vision I see is that we, had the Kawartha naturally connected, which I spoke to then, and we've got the maps. And we've got a lot of work, so we've got a kind of template to help us forward. So that's really exciting. I really look forward to having that rolled out. Are there any questions for Zoe? Okay, well, thank you very much, and I look forward to further communication. Thank you,
Thanks
Zoe.
very much. Thanks, everyone. Have a good afternoon. Okay, bye for now.
Bye. Okay, so can we have a motion to receive Zoe's presentation, please? Jerry, Kriya? Any comments? All in favor? Carried. Okay, so 6.2, presentation on local monitoring activities. Nathan. Hi, Nathan.
Well, want to pull that,
Definitely have to turn this way.
yeah, it's, should you go back to the start?
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. Okay, so I'm just going to talk a bit about our local environmental monitoring program here at Kawartha. So to start, our local monitoring program is supported by our environmental monitoring strategy. The purpose of the strategy is to provide a cost-effective environmental monitoring network that facilitates evidence-based decision-making that also provides accessible and real-time science and data to our communities. And in addition, we also align with our strategic goals and those of our member municipalities. So no, you can just switch over. Are you able to click it? Yeah, so our local monitoring program is a Category 3 program. We maintain a core watershed monitoring network, which includes water quality, quantity, and that applies to both surface and groundwater. And we do so on a more local scale than some of our provincially mandated programs. This, I guess, helps us identify issues requiring attention early on while gauging the effectiveness of current planning practices. The two main elements of the program are biomonitoring and water temperature monitoring. These programs work in collaboration with partners from conservation authorities, provincial government, academia, and also other community groups. So to start, I guess, with water temperature monitoring. So changing water temperature is a key identifier for climate change. It's a big piece. And current climate modeling shows that air temperature is continually on the rise. And because air temperature and water temperature are correlated, as air temperature rises, water temperatures will as well. We can expect that water temperatures will continue to rise in the future. So we track water temperature in our streams by deploying small data logging devices at 32 different locations across our watershed. These devices save water temperature observations hourly and are kept in streams all year long. A key partner for us is Trent University. So they supply us with a co-op student every year to help out with the field work. Shown here on this slide is Tristan Pilgrim, a third-year environmental science co-op student who's helping us out this year. And she's retrieving a logger there from a T-bar that is staked in Nonquan River. So just to go over some graphs. So the graph you see here is air temperature. So you'll notice in the winter on the lower left, your temperatures are below zero. And then as you get through the year into the summer, you're up in the 25 degrees. And then heading down back into winter, it begins to drop again. The red line here, so that's representing the temperatures found in a warm water stream. So something like Scugog River, it will rise very similar to your air temperature and follow that same trend. And then the blue line, so that is the water temperature from a cold water stream. And you'll notice that the cold water stream, it's a lot warmer in the winter and cooler in the summer. So it's different than your warm water stream. And additionally, the cold water streams, they don't fluctuate as much. So they're not as volatile as warm water streams. So our most sensitive streams comprise of 1/5 of all of the water courses within our jurisdiction and exist in 12 of the 28 sub watersheds in our area that we work in. Cold water streams are found in areas with continuous clean and cold groundwater inputs, such as the Oak Ridges Moraine and various esker geological formations. These groundwater fed streams support sensitive aquatic life, like brook trout, as seen in the top right there. And these fish require clean, cold, clear, and highly oxygenated streams. And over time, they have sort of disappeared from their historical ranges due to changes to the environment and the surrounding land uses. Brook trout, though, specifically, are susceptible to warming waters. Therefore, we sort of use them as like the canary in the coal mine, if you will, for helping identify climate change patterns and the impacts that it has across our watershed. Some notable key findings from our program include approximately half our sites show that water temperatures are too warm, and with sites being degraded in hotter years and less in colder years. Now, when we compare that data to our neighboring conservation authorities, such as Central Lake Ontario Conservation Authority, our streams are warmer mainly because we don't have as much groundwater input as them. And therefore, our streams are going to be more susceptible to increases in temperature from climate change. That's just because we have less groundwater inputs that help sort of buffer and absorb those changes in air temperature. So this data shows that climate change is definitely a real threat to our water systems, but can definitely be mitigated and managed through things like planting trees for shade, protecting groundwater, reconsidering our use of top draw online ponds, which sort of convey the warm upper waters of a pond to more downstream waters. And those are just some ways that we can help manage that. So for biomonitoring. So biomonitoring is a program that uses live organisms to track water quality and water health. We use water bugs because they are A, readily available, B, easy to sample, and their populations respond exceptionally well to changes in land use and environmental conditions. As streams begin to get poorer and poorer in terms of water quality, the water bug community will change. And healthy streams have lots of unique organisms that are definitely sensitive to disturbance. The more degraded a stream is, the fewer amount of sensitive organisms will be present in that stream. And the focus of biomonitoring for us is on streams that flow through towns, your urban streams. These streams are typically most at risk because of the impacts associated with urbanization, such as increased nutrients and salt, flashy flows, water temperature change, removal of vegetation and erosion. Those are just some things that play a part. And these streams also have the most opportunity for improvement. So here's a list of some of the bugs that we typically find when we're sampling. There are 27 groups, many of which are recognizable, such as dragonflies, black flies, snails, and leeches, with some that are a bit more obscure, such as flatworms, hydras, and no-see-ums. So of these 27, this 27 group, only a few we would consider sensitive. The average number of these at each site in our watershed is 21%, meaning all of the bugs we would encounter at any given site, about 21% of them are sensitive. And I guess on the flip side, so there are some that are considered tolerant. These are organisms that replace the sensitive ones when streams are in poor water quality. And the average number of these at each site in our watershed is about 8%. So additionally, the biomonitoring program is a key element in our watershed report card program, which assesses the state of our lands and waters on a 5-year basis. Tracking sensitive organisms like caddisflies, stoneflies, mayflies, it's allowed us to come up with some quite alarming findings. Most of our urban streams are in exceptionally poor state. So with about 47 kilometers of streams considered poor, in fact, they have been consistently poor over the course of our tracking. In urban streams, sensitive organisms only average 2.7%, which is 8 times below the watershed average of 21%, and 20 times below that when compared to our minimally impacted streams, such as the ones you'd find at our conservation areas. So this data shows that urbanization is also a real threat to our water systems, but these impacts can be mitigated through better stormwater management, such as reducing flashy runoff events and allowing rainfall to absorb into the ground better, reducing salt and fertilizer use, and protecting the vegetation along our stream banks. That's a big one. So, and here's a map just to sort of showcase sensitive species. On a site-specific note, the lighter the color, the less amount of sensitive organisms were present. And generally speaking, the pattern we've noticed is that for good water quality locations, it's often in heavily forested areas, moderate in agriculture areas, and quite poor in urban centers. So that just sort of showcases our sites and what we collected in terms of a sensitive taxa outlook. So, and I guess to wrap it up, so we're always out doing, our biomonitoring work. And one thing we wanted to do is collect some footage of the work we do. So I put together a video and wanted to kind of showcase it to you guys. So yeah, feel free to ask some questions following the video, and hope you enjoyed. always fun doing that work, so there you go.
Thanks a lot. That was interesting, and that area, I love paddling on, not necessarily Nogies Creek, but the fish sanctuary, just past it, so
Yep,
it's,
it's beautiful.
heaven on earth for sure.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite places to go.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I have a question.
Yeah.
So at the start, you were talking about kind of heat and climate change and what's more of a threat, runoff, fertilizers, pesticides, that sort of thing, or actual heat and climate change?
So I think in terms of that question, I would say they correlate in a way that when we're doing the temperature work, monitoring temperature, it's the problem more so is that air temperature rising is going to continue to rise your water temperature, and things like your runoff and whether it's more salts or nutrients entering into your stream. When you pair that all together, it's a continual degrading of water quality. And for example, like planting more trees, maintaining your vegetation on the stream banks, that's all going to help slow down anything going into the water, which ultimately will help maintain a lower water temperature.
Yeah.
But it's definitely among the biggest issues in terms of climate change is just air temperature rising and getting hotter. So I don't know, hope that.
Yeah, and shoreline naturalization to stop the.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
Priya.
Yes, thank you, and through you, thank you so much.
No problem.
Great report, and especially for making that video, which really, clarifies and makes it obvious for, helps us really understand. So I just wonder because you actually, we can predict that the water going through urban centers is worse, but you proved it, through analysis and so on. So I just wonder about sharing this information to municipalities so that where, for them to share with residents, I mean, I know the Conservation Authority does that, but I'm thinking of waterways that go through, municipalities and so on. And just in terms of taking that information and, altering management practices, how can you advance this information around?
So I would probably direct this to Nancy or Mark if they want to comment on like strategies in terms of implementing your data and moving forward in the best way. How would you guys approach that?
So one way that we're working to get our data out there, so municipalities and partners know about what we're doing and collecting, is we're working on dashboards. So we are currently working on a biomonitoring dashboard, which is almost complete. That will allow municipalities to come in and view our data in real time, basically of how we collected it. And then it shows on there, what's not tolerant and what's tolerant, but also just following up with an annual report, which is one of our strategic objectives to start reporting and provide that information back to municipal partners annually.
So you actually are proactively letting them know that this information exists and encouraging them to view it and so on.
Yeah, well, that's our goal.
Okay.
We're working towards that. But yeah, we try to take obviously the information we collected, implement it into some of the other programs that we're generating and want to do on the landscape. So we use that as background information for those other mandatory programs that help.
Do you mind if I ask one more question?
Oh, go.
Okay, so you did talk about groundwater monitoring, and I think you meant groundwater levels in various areas.
So for groundwater, we do a few different things with groundwater. So the main one's going to be our provincial groundwater monitoring. So that's we call it PGMN, so Provincial Groundwater Monitoring Network. And essentially that's looking at levels as one piece, and then also taking samples, yearly samples that get sent out and look at water quality. And then in terms of, as I touched on it, it does blend into water temperature out in streams and creeks because a lot of them are that groundwater fed. And just sort of protecting those resources is an important piece. Because as I mentioned, like something like a brook trout relies heavily on cold water. And when you start to degrade a stream and temperatures increase, you might not see those species as much.
Do you have any comments on the effect of agricultural tiling as it affects both the level and the quality of groundwater?
So I don't know too much about the tiling. I've heard of people using it, but I don't know if I have too much to add on that.
I can probably mention something about that. Agricultural tile drainage is a key agricultural practice. What it does is it helps remove some of the excess water off the land. It usually does that through subsurface drainage into a lot of times a common kind of collector, which tends to be a watercourse. The issue there in some cases is that watercourse is a stream. That is then heavily altered. So that is something that we actually work with on the planning regulation side in order to try and minimize impacts. But it certainly does have an impact. There's one drain in particular that I'm aware of also has brook trout in it. So that's a pretty big impact whenever there's a drain clean out in order to maintain the grades. So it is I would say a bit of a conflict in between two different types of practices, trying to do two different things, and then try and mesh them as close as you can in order to make sure that there's a benefit to the farmers, but also not degrading the environment too much at the same time. So it is a balance for sure. But
are we meeting that necessary balance, or are we failing woefully?
I think in the end, it's a continuous process of improvement. So I think there's some successes that have been had, and also some other opportunities for learning that we've seen on the landscape. So.
Okay. Harold.
Yeah, thank you, Nathan, for that report. I found interesting your talk there on the cold water streams. Cold water streams come from ground source, from springs bubbling up from do you consider that whole stream to be a cold water stream until it, say, reaches the lake, or through runoff and other, do they become warm water streams?
So as far as I know, yes, that once it reaches that basin, from that point to its headwater, if you will, it's considered a cold water creek. However, Brett may have sort of a index that if it reaches above a certain temperature, well, that's when it starts to transition into a warm stream. That's a good question, but if someone else wants to comment on that, but as far as I know, yes, I would stay at cold water.
Nathan is right. I used to be director of watershed management for a number of years, so I've had the pleasure of talking to a number of our fisheries biologists. And Nathan's right that Brett does have a guideline. It's actually a guideline that's accepted by fisheries biologists across Ontario, and I believe even into the United States. And so the criteria I'm a little fuzzy on, but it is related to a certain temperature over a 5-day period. And if it exceeds that, then it starts to get into degraded habitat, and that's how the cold water streams are identified. There's also a link to the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry. They have a cold water fish layer that's been identified, and then this monitoring that we do helps to update the status of that layer.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Jerry.
Through the chair,
And Peter.
am I safe to guess that month to month over the course of a year, your bugs that you're counting would change in quantity and ratio?
So interesting question. So yes and no. So a lot of the bugs that reside in streams, they'll often stay over a long course. And if changes in land use start to affect the water, there will be a delay period before you don't see them, if I get that correct. And yeah, now as land use and water quality changes, if you go from one year to the next and there's something that's really impeding the quality of that water, you're most likely not going to see the same percent or numbers of a sensitive bug, maybe that you saw the year before, it would change, they would probably drop off. And that would be sort of the indicator that something's going on.
Would you be testing at the same time through the cycle? For each of
Correct.
these locations?
Yeah, so usually we do testing in the spring, and then it also bleeds in throughout the summer. And yeah.
So the reason for my guessing would be the temperature obviously goes up in the summer because we have a nice climate in the summer.
Correct, yeah.
So that should deplete the population of sensitive bugs if the temperature is the big threshold, correct?
It's a good question. If anyone else has anything to add,
I just thought, the other thing I was gonna ask was, when you get near a high phosphorus output where the aquatic life, plant life really flourishes, how does that change your count on your sensitive bugs?
I personally, I don't know. It would be something Brett could probably touch on more.
I think staff are writing down your questions as we speak, so.
And I can actually answer that one, because I also had the privilege of starting our biomonitoring.
Been around a long time, Mark.
Yes. So as a summer student, actually in 1998, I started to develop a benthic program, which is what we have today. And then we continued it going on from 1999 to current day. And so there's a couple of sites that are indicators of what you talked about. So when you have phosphorus inputs, you tend to have a lot more nutrients in the water, a lot more plants. And so in those types of environments where you get a lot of phosphorus, you end up with potentially a lot of amphipods, also known as side swimmers, or like really tiny crayfish, if you were shrimp. They're in the similar family. So you'll end up with a lot of those trying to break down materials. And then depending on your site, you could have a range of like a pretty good biodiversity, including like a lot of damselflies, a lot of dragonflies, a lot of your midges. Is there a name for midges? No, that's the common term. They're the little things that look like mosquitoes, but they have fuzzy antennae when they come out and emerge from the water. So you'll end up with more and more of those as your phosphorus goes up or your nutrient levels increase. And then as you keep going to the extremes, you would end up with shifts of population. So you might end up with what are called a lot of shredders or a lot of flies. As a couple of different criteria that you can use, or the worms that were pointed out earlier. So when you get to really nutrient-enriched environments like urban environments, then you get blood red chironomids, which are the midges. That's the scientific term. So the midges, when you get blood red ones, they have hemoglobin like we have in our blood, and those are 10 times worse than regular chironomid. So when you start to see lots of those in your water, that's when you know it's really impacted in terms of water quality.
Well, thank you for that. Peter?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions for you, Chair. I was wondering if this could be shared with the municipality of Trent Lakes, Nobody's Creek is in Trent Lakes, and maybe with our environmental committee. I'm sure they'd be quite interested in it. And other question is, how does this impact birds and other wildlife?
So for birds, for example, we touched on the fish, and they rely heavily on the benthic community. I do know that birds also have a big reliance on benthic invertebrates, these water bugs. I do know that they like the early stages of your caddisflies and your dragonflies and those things. Same with mayflies. I know Mark's a big bird guy, so he might have another input on that, but I do know that they do rely on benthic communities. Yeah.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Just when I was driving over on CBC, there was a whole show on bird populations diminishing, and it basically came down to bugs, the lack of bugs. So that was kind of interesting. Did you want to say? follow up or?
No, I think that's
Okay.
great. Nathan answered perfectly.
Okay, great. Can I have a motion to receive this very interesting presentation? Okay, Eric and Jerry, all in favor? Carried. Thanks a lot. That was really.
Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate it. Okay, yeah. Thank you. Oh, thank you.
Okay. So 6.3, building CA collaboration and staff capacity for future municipal service initiatives, sustainable technologies evaluation program. Another really interesting talk, I'm sure. Nancy.
It's my turn.
Yep.
Let's see, I've got control of this now. There we go. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Today I'm here to provide some information on a project that we're working on to develop CA collaboration and staff capacity to help improve some support for municipal partners. So in the recent years, municipalities have been faced with compliance requirements for Ontario regulations, 3 of them being the Ontario Regulation 588-17, which is the asset management planning for municipal infrastructure, the Ontario Reg 208-19, which is the environmental compliance approval for sewage works, and then most recently, the consolidated linear infrastructure environmental compliance approvals. The last 2 regulations make municipalities responsible for approving sewage collection and stormwater management systems, requiring them to prepare and implement operations and maintenance, inspections, and performance and receiver monitoring. So it's no secret that municipalities are facing challenges due to these new regulations specific to the sewer systems and the consolidated linear infrastructure, environmental compliance approvals, and the asset management planning. They are facing increased work pressures while also trying to meet the proposed 1.5 million homes targeted to be built by 2031. In addition, municipalities are also having to deal with new work processes needed for the natural and engineered green infrastructure, so LIDs, because they're where there's lack of staff expertise on that specific subject matter, and also they're having to navigate budget constraints due to ballooning construction costs. So with the challenges mentioned on the previous slide, municipalities are seeking some technical guidance, process development, staff resource support, and staff capacity building, and conservation authorities are seeing the opportunity to actually perhaps help them with this. Some CAs across the province are already offering these types of services and support specific to infrastructure inspections and condition assessments, process development, technical training, monitoring, and guidance. So to explore the opportunity, CAs within the Greater Golden Horseshoe came together to form a collaborative that will look at offering expanded services to their municipal partners based off what municipalities are seeking and what CAs can support and offer them. So based on those CAs that are currently providing services to the Greater Golden Horseshoe CAs can collectively collaborate and work on offer shared services or replicated services. We can share our expertise and our experiences. We can build staff capacity with training and job shadowing opportunities. This collaborative can improve the corporate agility as well as help standardize approaches and streamline regulatory approvals. If we can do this well, CAs could potentially expand their category 2 and 3 programs into the future. So the Greater Golden Horseshoe Collaborative was formed to explore this opportunity. This group is made up of 1 or 2 representatives from each CA within the Greater Golden Horseshoe. The goal of this group is to develop a service model to better support our municipal partners with the consolidated linear infrastructure and applicable Ontario regulations work. This project will undertake 3 phases: information gathering and gap analysis, collaborative plan development, and plan execution. So this slide represents the anticipated timeline. Back in early spring, the collaborative was formed. To date, we have successfully completed phase 1, which is the information gathering and gap analysis phase, and we've been approaching into phase 2, the collaborative plan development. We will tackle the phase 3 during 2025, which will be undertaking training required to execute the plan, with the end goal having a formalized service model to begin initiating offerings to our municipal partners in 2026. So the next few slides will just go over what the collaborative group has already accomplished and what we intend to accomplish over the next couple phases. So as mentioned, the information gathering and gap analysis phase, this phase was initiated earlier this year. In this phase, the collaborative group made up of 11 CAs conducted 2 surveys. The first surveys was geared to CAs, and we wanted to get a better understanding of what types of services CAs are currently assisting with our municipal partners on the consolidated linear infrastructure, the sewage system, collective work, as well as the asset management planning. And then while the second survey was directed to the Greater Golden Horseshoe municipalities, and we wanted to understand the current state and challenges that they're being faced in implementing those same regulations. Also part of this phase, we assessed CA service gaps. For possible model sharing and replication, we conducted a skills needs assessment of the CA and municipal partners, and then determined what types of trainings exist and is available to undertake targeted training gaps. So results of both surveys indicated that there are a fair number of CAs providing support services to their municipal partners for the consolidated linear infrastructure and the asset managed planning component, or they're currently providing support for implementation and operations of stormwater best management practices. 64% of the CAs responded that they are receiving funding apart from their current municipal levy for these services. To date, there's 2 CAs, Lake Simcoe and Toronto region, that have secured service agreements for the consolidated linear infrastructure work, as well as the asset managed planning work with their municipal partners. On the other side, the municipal survey, we had a total of 36 municipal partners respond to the survey within the Greater Golden Horseshoe. Majority of the municipal partners are implementing aspects of the consolidated linear infrastructure within their municipality, but only 9 of those 36 have capacity to implement all aspects of that regulation. 18 responded to the survey that they currently don't have the capacity to do those regulations. To date, 11 of those 36 municipalities have engaged with their partnering CAs on the consolidated linear implementation stuff related to inspection, maintenance and monitoring, asset maintenance, and training opportunities. With phase 1 just wrapping up, we are now entering into the phase 2, developing a collaborative plan. The first step in this phase will be to determine what CA services have broad interests among the Greater Golden Horseshoe CAs, then to identify processes to share the services between the 11 CAs. Once we have established those shared services, we'll identify the training needs or training needs that need to be developed to replicate those shared service models and processes, build organization capacity, build staff skill sets, and in turn, rolling out the services. The final phase is slated to take place in 2025. Phase 3 will be executing the collaborative plan and a training strategy. To help facilitate training, development, and delivery, we are hoping a funding proposal submitted to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities in the amount of $282,000 will be successful. CA staff will be trained through in-class and field training on common services agreed upon by the Greater Golden Horseshoe CAs and become equipped to begin offering municipal services specific to the consolidated linear infrastructure, the sewage system environmental compliance, as well as the asset management planning. Thank you. You have any questions?
We've got lots. I just have a quick one. What did our member municipalities say when you reached out to?
So, as shared, City Kawartha Lakes is obviously shared amongst a number of CAs. I reached out on behalf of the neighboring CAs, and there was no response from the City of Kawartha Lakes. And there was no response from the Township of Scugog, but Durham Region did respond to the survey. So we have response from them. And then I talked to Jerry earlier this week, Cavan Monaghan, because we're a small section of the watershed within Cavan Monaghan. I was under the impression that Tonabee would reach out, and at this time they haven't reached out.
So did that go to, I'm just wondering where it went to have input, like what area of the city, planning or?
I sent it to Public Works and Engineering Services.
Okay,
Multiple times.
good to know. Thank you.
Now, I should say Public Works did respond and sent it to Engineering Services. So I did have a little bit, but
Gotcha.
yes,
Okay, thank you.
no problem.
Tracy.
Thank you for the presentation. And that was kind of the same type of segue I was going to ask about, you know, making sure that we're educating the municipalities. Because if you're going to fill that pivotal void, which is a need moving forward, then our municipalities have to recognize what you're doing. So we're not duplicating that service and that cost to the municipality. So I think the 3 councillors are sitting in this room right now that represent Kawartha Lakes will definitely be sending out our outreach to our engineering department to say, hey, pay attention. Because, you know, because this could possibly become a budget ask in the future. But if you guys are ahead of it, you're going to save us money. So I really do appreciate the and we'll do our homework too.
Okay, so just also on that line, the consolidated linear infrastructure environmental compliance guidelines are still being drafted. They haven't yet been released. And the last time that I had a conversation with the engineering services department is they were waiting for that guidance to be officially, I don't know, let out to see where CAs, because it is definitely within that guidance that the receiver monitoring aspect, they're really heavily relying on your CAs to provide that service. So I don't know, maybe it's just a window of waiting for that regulation to fall down. We're just taking the initiative because we know that this is definitely coming down the pipes for municipalities to help offer those services.
Good on you. Good on you recognizing.
No, this is great.
Really well.
Jerry?
Through the chair, so in this collaboration, how does the hierarchy break down? Who's steering the ship? And at what point, once they get an idea of how they're gonna filter it back to the different
Depends if they get the grant.
days in the whole greater picture?
Depends if they get the.
Where would Kawartha Lakes fall into the pecking order to see some of the benefits that might come from this?
So the whole idea is to come up with a consistent, streamlined process to offering these services. So for everybody. So right now, the big ones in the mix right now is Toronto Region, because they are currently implementing it. Lake Simcoe, they're currently implementing. So they have a strategy, they have a methodology of how they do this. So they are going to be one of the ones that are going to be helping with the training. Part of the STEP program, the Sustainable Technology Program, they offer courses and are available to us. We currently have staff taking online free courses to get us up to speed on this type of work.
Eric.
Just 2 quick questions. How many conservation authorities are there in the Greater Horseshoe? When I picture the map of the Greater Horseshoe, I picture more than 11 CAs. Is it 11 and that they're all where I'm going is there any that aren't participating? Or is this all the CAs?
This is all the CAs within them, yeah.
And is it the Greater Horseshoe because of more than half the population of Ontario is in the Greater Horseshoe? So is that why it's that area specifically as conservation authorities, or just curious if it's a population relationship?
It's
Through you, Madam Chair. Figure out how to write that time. The GGH collaborative is 11. Judging from the map, there's a few extra CAs that are coming in based on municipal boundaries and trying to make sure that the municipality as a whole is covered up. But the GGH collaborative was created because we had common issues across some of the big CAs, and there's a bit of an evolution that occurred. GGH was one separate group, and there was an Oak Ridges Marine collaborative as well. Those 2 groups merged. So the GGH originally had a slightly smaller grouping. I believe it was 8, and then with Oak Ridges being rolled into that now GGH collaborative, we kept that term. It brought in the other couple of CAs into the mix, and that's why Autonoby's in there, for instance, and Lower Trent, where they weren't traditionally part of that GGH CA going back about 5 or 6 years ago. And that was strategic just to Oak Ridges had kind of achieved its means almost. So any of the common issues that were coming up were still within the GGH collaborative by and large. So we harmonized those 2 groups, which in the end saved a little bit of money as well. But we, as a conservation authority, as part of the collaborative, invested some money into this group, and as a result, we were able to initiate this project at the CIO level, which is now filtering down through And this ties in with Director Burns' comment about where are we in the pecking order, we're well positioned. In terms of this project here, I would say we're the lucky recipients of a lot of the work that's been going on from the other CAs. So we have Toronto Region, a lot of work that's been going on by Credit and Lake Simcoe. Those are really the big leaders in low impact development and developing all the guidance that we are going to be benefiting from through this initiative. So it's a great position to be in, and they've done all the field testing. They've got a great program on effectiveness measures as well. So we're I would say we're not at the top in that pecking order, but it's an extremely good position to be in.
So once we've gone through that, and hopefully when we get the grant, do we know when that might happen? When they're going to announce it?
So the grant, they should be hearing anytime now. For if they're successful, we had just had a meeting a couple weeks ago and they were waiting to hear from them. If the grant doesn't come through, there is a little bit of money that the Greater Golden Horseshoe Collaborative has put in, 50,000, to help offset some of the training. And then they're going to use that 50,000 to figure out which training is priority moving forward.
Right.
So there is a little
Fingers
money.
crossed.
Yeah.
So going forward, then, the municipalities will, especially Kawartha Lakes, will have to change some of their policies then around low impact development.
Yes. Well, they have to comply with.
They have to comply with the regulations.
They'll have to start, inspection and monitoring
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff,
Right.
performance
So
maintenance.
they'll need that. Kriya.
Oh, yes, thank you. Through you, just from a business perspective, I mean, and does this kind of make up for the work that the conservation authorities lost with Bill? What's it called?
No, a whole pile of bills.
Yeah. Is it, and what does it do from a business model perspective to the CA in terms of staff? And I think you said most of it was within the levy that's already, or is it?
Outside of
Outside.
of, so it would be their capital or category 2 or category 3 service being offered.
I see.
Yeah. So for us, it's a pretty big business opportunity for us to navigate into, especially with the stormwater management we're currently doing. We're doing monitoring on some urban streams in Lindsay. So it's kind of an opportunity for us to expand what technical expertise we could offer.
Great. That's another really exciting presentation. Thank you.
Madam Chair, just further, I think, to some comments earlier is that as part of the rollout of this, I do see that there's probably a benefit to approaching municipal councils and letting them know about this program as it gets developed. A little bit further.
Absolutely.
So I think it's good news story, especially when we get the funding for municipalities as well as for CAs and helping out in the general program. So.
Great. Okay, well, thank you. Okay, so, Peter, yes.
Yeah. Just through your chair, one quick question. Was there any response from Trent Lakes?
No.
Didn't think so.
I think part of this, Madam Chair, is that it is new.
So the regs haven't really come out yet, but we're ahead of the curve.
We're ahead of the curve, but also you have to, it is also dependent on those features being like stormwater ponds, and that kind of infrastructure is usually within the urban centers of. So if a rural municipality for us, we're looking at Lindsay, we're looking at Port Perry, like those areas having the infrastructure to go out and service.
Right.
So Trent Lakes.
Yep.
Yeah, so you have.
Enough development.
Yeah, so that's why I think on a perspective of commenting back to the survey, it would have been nice to have that rural perspective because they're mostly heavily urbanized, the CAs and the municipalities that responded. But we're kind of in that window of a little bit of urbanized and rural, so.
I was just thinking, Kawartha Lakes is doing a stormwater management plan. So would the CAs, this body, be able to help with that in the background?
Yep.
That's how I'm just thinking. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
I had up the background report was with the presentation.
Right, so that's all part of
Part of it.
Okay, so resolve that staff report on sustainable technologies, evaluation program, step project, proposal, building CA collaboration and staff capacity to improve support for municipal partners be received, and that the board of directors support the proposal to provide training resources with the intent to support municipalities in the requirements in addressing consolidated linear infrastructure, environmental compliance approval, and asset management requirements, and that staff approach partner municipalities with the potential for providing services in the future tied to the Sustainable Technologies Evaluation Program proposal. There we go. Can I have a mover? Priya, seconder Tracy. Any more comments or questions? All in favor? Carried. Great. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Okay. So we're on to 7.1 permits issued by designated staff. Matt.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. As found on page 25 of the agenda, we are reporting on the month of September, where we issued 27 permits, having 96% of them deemed complete within the timelines, 78% were issued within CALC timelines. And with respect to provincial guidelines, we reviewed and issued all the permits within the timelines. We are seeking resolution that the permit performance report be received.
Great. Any questions? Okay, a mover and seconder, Eric and Peter. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, Matt. Okay, so then we're on to 7.2, Matt, Birch Point Road.
Thank you again, and through you, Madam Chair. As found on page 30 of the board report, an application has been made for a lot of record with existing driveway. The property is located along the east side of Birch Point Road. It is approximately 700 meters south of Boston Lake. What is proposed is the construction of a residential dwelling with attached garage, deck, driveway, and septic system. Through the review process, the applicant has attempted to meet conservation or Kawartha Conservation's policies, and currently does not meet the wetland compensation or balance cut fill aspects due to constraints of the property. However, implementation of mitigation measures outlined within the geotech report and EIS report submitted to us, in conjunction with floodproofing and sediment erosion control, will help mitigate or minimize these negative effects of construction. It is the opinion of staff that natural risk can be mitigated for the construction of the proposed dwelling and fill placement and septic system. We are seeking resolution that the application pursuant to Ontario Regulation 41-24 to allow the construction of a residential dwelling with associated driveway, septic system, and fill placement for the floodproofing purposes be approved and permitted. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions?
I said this one.
Yes, Priya?
I'm not gonna ask the usual questions. But I'm just curious, how many more of these are gonna come this way? Like how many already, developed lots are there that are likely to come up and not fill the requirements, but you have to pass them?
Through you, Madam Chair. There are several, I don't know the exact number of a lot of records that exist in this. These were ones pre-existing.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to gauge how many. I would say there would be like it's like. Sorry. Okay.
No, go ahead, keep going.
Keep going.
A lot of records, that's what I'm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hundreds?
I have no clue how to gauge it, to be honest, but I do see that there likely be a trickle of these coming through. However, we do try to make sure that the individuals adhere to as much of the policies as possible and to reduce their impacts as they're doing this, so that we try to preserve as much of the, like in this case, wetland or flood plains or anything like that.
Any other questions? Not? Okay,
Madam Chair, I can.
Yes, oh, yes,
answer that,
sorry.
Question if you want, and maybe what we'll do is we'll follow up after the board meeting with some information that'll help clarify. We did an exercise probably about 8 years ago that looked at lots of record and in relation to our regulated area. So even though our regulated areas kind of shifted a little bit, it still provides a good gauge. And the gauge was like what would be extremely problematic ones that we could potentially face. And I think it was in the order of a couple thousand that don't have a lot of development on them currently, but would pose policy issues. So there's a good number of properties, lots of record out there.
Okay. All right, can I have a motion to approve this, or Jerry, do you have a seconder? Peter, any other comments? All in favor? Carried. Okay, so we're on to 7.3 strategic actions update. Mark.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. Oh my God, I'm catching myself
You
every
can
time
call me
since
Mayor,
last
that's
meeting.
okay.
So the strategic actions update is provided for your information, provides a lot of detail in terms of some of the specifics that we've reported in through the CIO report over previous months. And if you have any questions on the information, be happy to address them.
Any questions of Mark? Nope. Okay, then can I have a motion to receive that? Okay, Eric and Jerry, all in favor? Carried. Okay, so then we're on to 7.4. Mark, CAO report.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair. I'll highlight just a couple of elements within my report. You can see that this month we're busy out on the landscape. So I think we just through my unofficial numbers, count them up, about 53,000 people that we were able to either connect with or were part of events that we were a part of. So pretty big impact, I would say, this month. We were a part of the Kawartha, well, put Kawartha first, but technically it's Halbert and Muskoka Kawartha Children's Water Festival that had 300 kids, and they liked our presentation the best, which is great. The wellness fair that was held in Lindsay had about a couple hundred people attend that, and that was well attended. We ran out of materials and had to ferry some more materials into that, so received a pretty good reception there. And the Fall Fest, we had about 750 people come in, enjoy all the things that were there, and that's a lot of family fun. Some education in there, and just a good turnout for that. And that was our event. The other one was the International Plowing Match, and that had over 50,000 people come to the event over 5 days, more or less. To that, and so we had a really good turnout there. I'm not biased in that I think that showcase was the best of all the
Yes, it was.
It was,
Yeah.
yay.
Even better than Ram Rodeo, which I thought was pretty cool. But I'm a little biased perhaps. But it was amazing. There was a nice vibe inside the tent, and as I mentioned before, we had our crew develop the feature that was there, and some great support through Pine Needle and Rockwood, who supplied all the trees. And just going to the event and hearing some of the comments, talked to a couple of folks. They mentioned they really liked the trees that were in there, and they liked that they knew what they looked like and that they knew what to get as a result.
Yeah.
So it was a nice kind of hands-on, and there's lots of hands-on kind of activities that were there for everyone. Lots of our partners were there as well. So a really good reception for our piece of it, and I think for the city piece of it too. Like it was a pretty busy building the whole time. So, and just like to thank Director Richardson as well, because she actually helped with some of the setup, not only the trees, but also making everything make sure everything was placed right. And I saw a rake in your hand at one point there too, so.
For 2 days.
So yeah, really, really big event, a lot of positive impact, and received a couple emails since as well, just commenting on how well it was put on. So the other thing I'll mention is one person that was actually instrumental in the planning of the event, Jenna Stevens. She is now employed by the city of Kawartha Lakes.
Poached.
It's a bit of, yes, our municipality poached one of our best people. But she is going to a position that I think suits her skill sets, which is great. She'll be the, see what the exact title is, of planning officer for environmental policy. So it's a good position, and I think she'll do really well in that. We'll be, of course, which we are currently, is working with trying to use a stopgap measure in order to fill that in the short term, but looking to fill that in the long term. She was also a risk management official and inspector, so there's a piece to fill there as well. But like I say, I think she'll do extremely well there, and we look forward to bringing her back.
You can't have us.
But we'll see in the future, ladies and gentlemen. But she'll be great for the municipality. Source water, we are, as of today, actually consulting on a change to the assessment report and source protection plan. That is, Kings Bay has an additional well that's being proposed as a result of some development that's going on in that area. So that is, like I say, starting today and going through till November 28th. So we've been busy getting the mail outs from today as well. So a few of them are going out a little bit later as well. So thanks, Mel, on that. And the last thing that I'll mention is you probably saw a small backhoe in our front yard. So that is the rain garden that's going in to address some of the runoff issues and provide a low impact demonstration site. So there looks like they're doing some good work, and look forward to having it completed and seeing what the final look is, and having it function well, which is great. So a lot of other work that's been going on in the last month, but those are some of the highlights I chose to focus on.
Yeah, thank you. Any questions of Mark? Tracy?
Through you, Chair, just a thank you to your staff and the quarterback, Christy there. She did a phenomenal job pulling that IPM together. And then all your staff coming those 5 days, happy faces, engaging, worked so well with us city staff. Like you said, the vibe was amazing. And John, honestly, your coverage for social media was off the charts. You really, really set the bar. When you look at all the other social media that was going on for the International Flying Match, yours was at the top.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, it was a great opportunity to work with all the staff members and just an incredible team. So.
We are very lucky. Like you say, there's a number of gems that we have. John helped out a ton on the communication. He was a lead for communications. I forget what the exact title was for the event, but it was a big fancy title. It sounded very, very important, and he did a great job filling it. And as you mentioned, Christy and Jenna was another person. Carolyn Snyder was a big part, and any others, Christy? Other than everyone else that pitched in.
I mean, Freddie, and Jackson and Kaylee pulled together that lake wetland. thing, not knowing what the heck they were doing from the start. So incredible ingenuity and creativity on their part. So yeah, and the city staff were incredible too.
That was really a nice vibe. It really, it's nice. It's good. Thank you to everybody for that. Yeah, okay. Can I get a motion to receive Mark's report, please? Tracy and Priya, all in favor? Carry. Okay. And then we're on to 7.5, correspondence. Okay. Look here. Mark, you want to speak to that?
Yep, sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. There's 4 pieces of correspondence that were received in this time period. Conservation Ontario minutes from actually April were posted, so we'll provide those. Durham Region provided budget guidelines for a number of departments. We're embedded within that, and they identified 2.5% as their increase. And
Just a little light reading.
Yep, and then Conservation Ontario, we received a couple of, these were actually addressed at Conservation Ontario meeting that was held earlier in the month. And so those were two guidance documents on administrative reviews. So our next step is to create a policy document on that. So you'll see that. And then the other one is annual timelines. So there's a number of pieces that the new regs have identified in terms of critical reporting, and also required an annual report to be generated every year. So this is guidance on what that annual report and what some of those reporting mechanisms are. So those are in there. And then a good news story for us and municipalities is that we received a letter from the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry that they're going to cover the costs going into the future on the orthophoto imagery that's flown. So
I don't think there's an F anymore.
it changes around. I thought it did, but I know they dropped it and I thought they added it back in, but whoever that ministry is.
Yeah.
It used to be a big collaborative where they used to go to all the municipalities, all the CAs, all different stakeholders and try and get pieces to support that. So they're going to cover the cost now. And I think that's great because the amount of effort that went into that exercise was significant. And a lot of their time was spent trying to get that all those collaborators work together. So I think it's a much simpler model for them and a much simpler funding model for us too, because we'll be able to benefit from that directly.
I just got to say that you guys do such a great job of going through all those regulations, and thank God Conservation Ontario is kind of helping out, but still there's just so much work to go through all that. So well done. Okay, can I get a motion to receive the correspondence, please? Jerry and Eric, all in favor? Carried. Okay, moving right along here. 8.1, action items, conservation areas, strategy, draft strategy. Mark.
My name in there. All right.
Sorry, Christy, you go for it. I'm
I'll think he's at a summary and then I'll turn it right over to Christy. So Christy was actually at a conservation lands conference for the last couple of days, and she truncated it in order to be here for you guys because you're so important. So
thank you, Christy.
So what I'll do is I'll turn it right over to Christy and she'll talk about the strategy.
Thank you. So you will recall at the last board meeting, I gave you a quick presentation on some of the community feedback that we had with regards to our consultation process. Trying to identify some of the key objectives that we wanted to take into consideration when developing new infrastructure or implementing new projects on our conservation areas. And that's the key focus of the conservation areas strategy, is to develop those sort of overarching guidelines. What are the things that are most important to us and to the community to ensure that we're considering those things when new opportunities come in front of us? And so we've taken a look at all of that feedback. We've drafted the strategy, which is before you now. I'm looking for some support from the board so that we can now take that back to the community to provide them with an opportunity to provide comments and feedback on what we did with their initial input. And while it's not necessarily a requirement to go back to the community at this point in time, I think it's really important because green space is so important to the folks that live here and the folks that come here to visit, that we give them the opportunity to see what we've done with their input, make sure that we didn't misunderstand some of the input, because there's always opportunities for that too. So this gives us a chance to circulate that over the next 30 days. And within the board report, I sort of mentioned some of the key pieces that we're going to do. One is send it out as part of our newsletter Certainly put it up on our website, have, a few social media posts, issue a release, those kinds of things. John's always amazing at making sure that the word gets out in an appropriate way so that we can receive that feedback back from the community, so.
Great.
And of course, yes, so I guess the other piece to it is that then in November for the board meeting, taking all of that feedback, putting in, updating the plan where necessary, and then bringing it back to the board for your endorsement for the end of the year, because it's required by the federal or the provincial government for them.
Great. Well, thank you for all your hard work. Do we have any questions for Christy?
I have one.
Priya?
For you, thank you. Yes, I see one detail here under mental health. Design restorative areas that are specifically intended for quiet reflection. It's really nice to see that, but does that mean that within every opportunity you'll take that design? No.
No, so again, this is sort of an overarching, these are setting the values and then some of the suggestions of what we might consider in order to achieve those values. So mental health came through, mental and physical health came through as two really important aspects from our community, is saying these are things that are really important to people. And so how can we incorporate opportunities for mental health, for physical health, and those types of things? So obviously maintaining our trails, if there's an opportunity for some site development, considering things like creating those spaces. So it's not necessarily a checklist of to-do items that we're going to go forward and do, but sort of some of those things that we're going to consider as we start looking to our management plans and the implementation of our management plans.
I just liked it. It wasn't a trail that's trying to get you from here to here quickly and go through. It's just like meant to just be like stop and
yeah.
So I thought that.
Yeah.
That stood out. It's really nice.
Yeah. Thank you.
And then, oh, yes.
Very briefly, my turn to thank staff, because I couldn't agree more, but I've been thinking, I'm gonna say it now. I don't know that people understand that the way, the intensity of this work that's gone into this, your presentation, sorry that Nathan's not here. These are on top of the job. Like, I've been in the consulting position. We've all had jobs where you create things to present to a large group, and it takes an enormous amount of time, and a lot of it's at home, and I know that. It has to be. And it's impressive. These presentations every time are really in depth, they're really thorough, and they're really nice to read. So just the kudos again, because Conservation Authority, I don't mean to piggyback, but it's another example where I don't know that people always understand that this is work on top of work. Just saying, thanks.
Great. Anybody else? Comments, questions? Okay, thanks, Christy. Can I have a motion to receive Christy's presentation? Peter and Tracy, all in favor? Carried. Thanks again. That's great. Okay, I'll just say not Mark, but Christy there. Okay, so we're on to 8.2, the budget.
Yes, so with John having moved on to OPG, Wanda having a prior commitment, and Alex on vacation for this week, I am literally your fourth option on this. So I will do my best to present their work, and so the work that our directors have done to kind of pull this together. Happy to answer any questions as well once I run through the material. So I'll just run through the report. We are looking at a 2.5% increase on the base operating levy, and that is an increase of 43,000, almost 44, 33,992. And then our source water protection is identified within the report. This is an important consideration because there is an element in the legislation that says if you can't cover off source water costs, municipalities have to pay for it. And that would happen if the province doesn't provide the funding for the program. We actually came very close to that scenario in this past year, but we have an agreement. We're able to kind of work things out to the best of our abilities on that, and it does seem like we'll be able to meet the demands of the legislation and all the work that needs to be done with a 3-year funding agreement with the province. So that's good news. So we're good for at least the next 3 years. But if they have any more cuts, that will be, I think, a problem. So hopefully there will be some some work done to encourage the province to continue to fund the source water protection program across the province going forward. We do have a number of assumptions that are presented for the budget. I'll just identify some of the big key ones that were outlined in the report for the development of the budget, and that is that the pay equity and compensation moves forward to continue implementing the pay equity decisions that were made. The asset management plan is included as a general benefiting project that is considered separate from the base levy, and as a result would increase the cost above that 2.5%. Development activity remains steady. And we have a note that there is a provincial freeze currently on the fees. A rough estimation of what that means for us is over the last 2 years that it's been in play, we'll probably see about a $30,000 reduction in the funding that's needed to support that program. That's based on 2% increases, which then compounds as you move through the years. So that's where that number comes from. So that means the municipal levy is supporting that element of it. And that's tied to, for instance, things that are tied to pay equity and compensation. The other one is that deferred revenues are used as applicable in the budget categories. We have received 2 budget guidelines. One is from the City of Kawartha Lakes at 3%. And we noted some correspondence that we're at about 5.22 once you add in all the different programs as a lump sum. Again, with 2.5 as that base, but once you add in the asset management plan and some of the special projects, that does increase. Region of Durham, as identified in the correspondence, is at 2.5%. It does look like that they didn't specify a 1.5 for special projects, so that's great. I did note that there were 9.5 or 5.6% increases for other areas. So hopefully that will change over time, but certainly does crunch us because we've been crunched for a number of years at the 1.5 on special projects, which means you're always losing because with 2.5% increase and 80% of that being staff time in those projects means that you have to constantly try and figure out ways to make that work. So that's kind of the situation that we're in. We have been going to one-time funding, which is identified in the budget as well for Durham to try and match things out. And some of that does include for general benefiting in order to make the apportionments work. In terms of general benefiting, we have taken the corporate records digitization off for this year. And we have included as consideration the 10-year climate change strategy at $15,000 as an implementation for the climate change strategy that was presented earlier. This year, I think it was at the last board meeting that we presented that. And continuation of the environmental monitoring strategy. It's the 3rd year of that program at $25,000 and asset management plan at $25,600. So there is an increase in general benefiting overall. Capital expenditures for the current year, there's a number of rollover elements. The only new item is a new utility train vehicle, which is we have what's called a mule, and it's getting old and needs constant repairs. So we need to look at replacing that and having something that doesn't break down for our CA Lands crew who are very busy. The items that are rolling over are the walkway and sidewalk repair as you run into the building at the front end. A road study in order to figure out what to do with our road in order to make sure it is more sustainable over time. I think you probably noticed a few potholes over various times of the year, which we try and keep at bay the best we can, but ultimately drainage is an issue. And the fencing for the new property. Which was approved previously, and so it's we had some issues getting that going for this year, and that is also one item that we're looking at rolling over. For special projects, these are the category 2 funding. elements. We have a number of projects that are proposed under that general framework. The risk management official services continuing at the same cost. We have lake management plan implementation for stewardship and science. For those, we're following very closely to the implementation plan that was presented earlier last year for the city, and those are supported by deferred revenues as well. Does not currently include Bobcaygeon Dam, which from some conversations that have happened relatively recently is Trent-Severn Waterway may provide $20,000 for that. So there may be an opportunity to perhaps use $20,000 of deferred revenue on that, but it's not currently included in that proposal. And we are proposing a new program at a cost of $80,000, which is a lake surveillance program. That was one that wasn't included in the lake management plan implementation, but was identified as a gap when we're holding our community consultations and developing the implementation plan. And what that would do is be able to, we've been focused on hotspot areas and trying to get a better handle on more finite areas. But as a result, we haven't been monitoring the lakes for the time period, which ranges from most recent one would be a couple of years, but the older ones are about 10 years, which is a good time frame to kind of look at things. So we are proposing that, and as I haven't mentioned this, but category 2s are entirely in municipal decision-making realm. So it's all done on behalf of the municipalities, and they have the ability to control that budget. Forestry and tree planting stewardship rounds out the City of Kawartha Lakes programs. For Durham, we have the complementary tree planting. Due to the deferred revenues, which are depleting in that area, we are looking at special one-time funding going to the region for that. That will definitely put us over the guidelines by those numbers fairly significantly. If you look at percentages, it is supported, however, by a very significant grant from Forest Ontario, and we've had great take up from that for that program. We also have implementation on the stewardship and science side of things for those two areas, and watershed planning continuing as a special funding, and that's to improve the base upon which planners can rely on. So things like looking at streams and identifying where they are, make sure that they're in the same places where they're supposed to be, also identifying whether they're cold or warm water, as you heard from Nathan earlier, which has a difference in the provincial policy planning statement in terms of how you handle it, as well as things like wetland verification, which is important in order to make sure that base is also accurate. So with that, that is a summary of the budget, and be willing to address any questions or our directors also.
Just, you did hit on my request for to match money for the Trent-Severn to do an initiative that's been kind of on the books for many years. The dam project in Bobcaygeon. So there's a fellow, Larry Jones, who, you know, truly believes he's been kind of a naturalist for many years. The way the water goes over the dam, he is bound and determined. He says there's science there. And there have been studies that the way that the water is going through the dam actually doesn't benefit the walleye spawning. So they wanted to do something here in Bobcaygeon to change the flow of the water so walleye can spawn better. I guess is that pretty much it, Nancy? Yeah, so I'd like to make a motion to add $20,000 to the budget for lake management implementation for the Bobcaygeon Dam. And if I get somebody who will second that, I'll speak to it a little bit more. Okay, so this will not add anything to the bottom line because it's coming from deferred revenue. That during COVID, a lot of the lake management implementation didn't get done. So there, it's like a reserve, deferred revenue. So that's pretty much it, unless Mark, you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think that's about it. If we're looking at the funding mechanism for that, I think having Trent Severn Waterway put in some funds is great.
They're gonna match it.
And it would, yeah, be a match. Deferred revenue, I think, is the best vehicle for that. Because we're already stretching the municipal dollar as it is in order to look at some of the other initiatives that we need, like asset management planning and trying to cover those. So that would mean that the money is really reserved for those program areas. And if city agrees, then we're okay on that.
Yeah, so Tracy?
So is that commitment letter already being sent to the Trent Severn Waterway to say that we are matching that 20,000?
So we had a meeting with Trent Severn, gosh, what, 6 months ago or so, or more, in Bob Cajun, where the head of the Trent Severn came. And so, and with all the other players, the fellow that I was talking about, Larry Jones, and some others. And I pulled out a commitment out of him for $20,000. So, and that we would possibly match that to get this going.
Then if he, okay, so as long as the 20 grand's there.
Yeah.
And we're, doing those matching funds, but if he doesn't bring the 20 grand.
Then it won't be
project
done.
stops.
Yeah, exactly. They've got to match that to move this forward. Harold?
Yeah, so basically, what are you proposing? You're proposing a study to,
Yes, I mean, Nancy could probably explain it a little bit better than I.
So there's two things happening here. The committee that we have suggested to Parks Canada a new mechanism of pulling logs out and in to adjust the water levels. What Trent Severn has come back to saying, well, we can't change the management of the entire system because they have a strategy in place for that. But they are willing for us to go do some monitoring on the flows and the water levels and the fish spawning collection in the spring to kind of gather data to help push maybe them changing that strategy. So we have to do that collection. And right now we don't have any staff, like money or time right now put in our budget to do that. So that money would help us facilitate that preliminary study before they go any further.
Yeah, Jerry?
thank you.
Or it doesn't matter. Eric? Eric or Jerry, whoever wants to go first.
Flip a coin.
Thanks, Jerry. Thanks. Through your chair. I guess I have a couple questions that I'm just confused on. So they're not meant to, it's more information needed. For something like this has come from a constituent, like I'm seeing this from a counselor angle. And I know Mr. Jones, he's great. So I know the individual. It sounds to me like this is something that could have been a deputation first, possibly a while back, so we all heard the root of this. I find it's like there was a meeting and it's come to the table now. And, I'm just kind of confused. Is it something you're hoping for? Or is this a resident's wish that now has gone through a counselor and a meeting of conservation? And therefore, hey, that's a great idea, Mr. Jones. Or is it something that you as the CAO want to be in your budget? Like my second question is, why didn't it just maybe appear in the budget as an ask of this? Am I making any sense?
It's in the lake management plan implementation, but it didn't come forward into this year. But if you go back and look at the implementation part of the study, it's in there. So it's not just Larry doing that. It's been an ongoing initiative through Kawartha Conservation.
Okay, so this is something you've wanted for a long time and is now a hope of yours, and just as opposed to,
Just Larry.
well, I knew it was just everybody, you know what I mean? So my question is, why not have it in the budget?
So what I'll do is I'll maybe back up right to the beginning, which is when we developed the very first, so we're in the second iteration of the implementation plan.
Okay.
The first one was 4 years?
5 years, 6.
Because we're in
Because
year
of-
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're 6 years in, so the first one, 5 years, the second one also 5 years. Sorry, my brain is a little pressed on there. It was identified in the very first plan. We said, we'll do it if there's some funds to move forward with it. But it wasn't at the stage where we thought it was ready to go. So it sat on the books for 5 years. It was included again, and that's again through the community implementation group that we pulled together to look at what should we do. So it was again included in the next 5 years, again with the stipulation of we'll move it forward when we see funding. So at this stage, technically, we haven't got an agreement with Trans Severn Waterway, but due to Pat's persistence with Trans Severn Waterway, with that commitment from Dave Britton from Trans Severn Waterway, looks like they will be able to. So we would put something forward as a result of that in the next iteration in the November budget, if the board agrees to, that we put in deferred revenue and proceed if we get the funding from Trans Severn Waterway as a leverage.
Well, thanks for that. That's great history. And so it's a straight while the iron's hot. You put a lot of work into to get it to that point.
It's been an ongoing issue for years and years and years. So I got Trent Severn to the table, kind of cause the bridge. So let's do some things for Bob Cajun, right? So that's how that rolled out recently. So.
And if I can as well, it's I believe if I remember right as well, there's other people that are involved in the initiative. Jamie Smale is also another individual that's eager to get this going and had a petition or something along those lines. It's on his website as well. So
Thanks.
but yeah, it's more than just one.
I ask if it's in my.
No, it's longstanding.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, Jerry?
Through the chair, yes, I was also wondering whether it's kind of like a pet project, but would anglers and hunters be the people to know whether there's a walleye problem? They're more in tune to that kind of thing to see if there is an anomaly or something because of that particular situation.
I think it's gone through all of that. Yeah.
NRF is like the agency that's providing.
Do they see an issue?
Yeah, I think they have, yeah. I'm not 100% sure, but they.
No, just, that was the focus of the reason.
They're not 100% sure they want more studies to be done, so that's the whole.
Yeah, but everybody always wants more studies.
Because it won't act and change the water flow unless, you see that, right? But we had a meeting here, I don't know, 6 months ago and maybe late summer.
It was August.
Was it? Yeah, so they were willing to move forward with this, so it's timing. Yeah. Peter?
I just have a comment. I certainly don't have any problem supporting $20,000, but I think it's a responsibility of Trans Severn Waterway, not of the Conservation Authority.
Well, we'll see if we can, try to wrangle some extra money out of them when we actually have an agreement. Yeah, so. That's about it, folks, but it is in the lake management implementation from years ago. I guess Tracy?
Okay, so clearly it's in one of the reserves, that funding that's sitting there, and it doesn't really have any further impact when you look at
Yeah, so.
It's just pulling that fund out so we can utilize that fund in the 2025 year, basically. is what we're-
Yeah, it doesn't hurt the
Yeah.
bottom line.
It's sorry, through you, Madam Chair, it's existing funds that were collected for lake management plan implementation. So we actually have that currently in the bank account and is putting it towards that project.
Lake management plan, that's almost the same, so.
Yeah.
Because it's not earmarked for anything else or anything, that reserve with.
Yeah, it's earmarked for that project. The project has about 7 different components
Okay.
altogether. And so it would be a piece of that that would be integrated.
That's fine.
Okay. Okay, I guess I'll call the question then. All in favor? Okay, that passes. Thank you, people. Okay, so that's, and I guess, did I get a motion to receive your? No, thank you. Okay, so I also need a motion to resolve that the draft 2025 budget proceed and that the second draft be presented at the November 28th, 2024 Board of Directors meetings.
I just had one quick little
Yep.
thing here, if you don't mind, of course.
Yeah.
It's just something I'm not interpreting, you're right, and needed some clarification on page 136. We're looking at levy percentage increases there. I know there are agreements that affect different regions differently. On there, the year-over-year percentage increase for the region of Durham is 11.1, and everyone else got away in the 2 to 4% category. Just wondering if you knew off the top of your head what was affecting that percentage increase. Was it a special agreement or something that was?
Yep. Through you, Madam Chair, the big piece on that one, there's a couple elements of it, but one is asset management plan increases the Durham percentage. So at 2.5, you're already a percentage and a half more on that end. The other really big one is the forestry program. So the forestry program for the last several years, 3 years, has been funded by deferred revenues. And again, that was a COVID implementation piece. So that is going to be used up in the next budget season. So we'll be at 0. So this is now saying if we want to do tree planting in Durham, it has to be supported in some way. So that is the about $36,750, if I remember right. So that is a big chunk more than considering Durham's apportionment as well. That bumps it up to that 11%.
Okay. No, I knew it was something. I just didn't see what it was. That was. Okay.
I did touch on it, but it was in the mix of everything else.
Okay.
But it is the big driving factor behind the Durham increase that we're proposing at least.
But in the first, we're hearing about it,
Yeah.
so that's why it's interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Oh, sorry.
So when this
Tracy?
budget comes back, when this budget comes back to us in November.
Yep.
That will be the adoption process, is that?
Yes, so what we'll do, and it does, so the next process is we'll bring it back. It's a second draft of the budget. At that point in time, we'll also attach the words to the numbers. And then you meet and decide whether or not it's ready for passing on to municipalities for a 30-day consultation period. If you don't think it's ready, then we would create another draft and basically work until you're satisfied.
Are you fine tuning are you still fine tuning, looking for deficiencies or places where you can do shifts right now?
We're always looking at that. I mean, the one notable one would be to add in the Caucasian dam from this discussion. But other than that, we're pinched in a bunch of different ways. So hitting 2.5 is I think pretty good on the operating side.
If I can make a comment, just that we have been working through a budget process right now, and we have that 3% threshold that we're looking at, but I have to say that 3% is not sustainable anymore. For any of us moving forward, unfortunately, these budgets are becoming more of a challenge. And, you know, you're looking at such an exorbitant rise in capital costs. And then you're, you know, obviously you have to look after your people, you have a people strategy, which is critical because you don't have that, you don't have the services. So I really, you know, when I'm looking at the overall picture anymore, these lower percentages are just not sustainable for anybody moving forward, and it's gonna be tough. Right? It's gonna be tough, and that message has to go out to the taxpayers. If you want this level of service, then it does come with a cost. And I, you know, not putting the thumb on you to make it tighter. I recognize the challenges that you're having too, because we're having, all of us sitting around here right now having the same challenges.
And Madam Chair, if I can comment on that as well, human resources is our biggest cost, is 80% of the budget. And that hits then the special projects as well. That's where the 1.5% for Durham, as they had, which looks like it's changed, which is great, was always a pinch point because we have an increasing cost and a decreasing kind of margin on the revenue side. So that's always a challenge, but also tied to it are things like our insurance costs, our all the plans that we have to help support staff, and website, you know, is another one. There's all sorts of pieces that are looking at either high single digit or double digit increases, and that ends up pinching the budget on top of everything else because everyone's trying to, you know, get their piece. So I know, I forget what it was. I think it was one of the increase. I can't remember which one. It was a 22% increase that the service provider was looking for. We're like, damn, that's like high. And so we were able to get it down to single digit, well, single, not quite single, but into the low double digit numbers instead of 22. So, you know, it is a significant pressure point in order to do that. If we're looking at, you know, trying to match the budget, then I think there's some options that we could look at, but it means deferral of projects is really what it means to, and then we'd have to see what that means in terms of preserving our staff complement as well. So.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
The only question I have, I mentioned to Christy earlier, I will mention it just because Mark might be able to explain. I'm always confused. All the hard work goes in, as Councilor Richardson, Director Richardson pointed out, to everybody, you know, all this work goes into trying to really get this down in a society that's just inflated. And then I read that the ministry is not, their contribution this year remains the same as last year, no increase. So I'm not going to complain about that. It's not my position to sit here and pontificate about that. I have a question. Is there anything that the directors can do? Do we have any role to help assist that further and say, I don't know, is there a door we can knock? Is there something we could be doing to help that what I see as a unfair, using the word matching today, you know, it just seems odd that it's no thanks. Is there anything that we could help you?
They pulled out years ago.
Just wondering if Mark knew if there's anything we could be doing.
Yeah. Through Madam Chair, I think there are a couple. Certainly your support at the municipal level is greatly appreciated because that really helps drive the importance of our business and also, you know, kind of demonstrates you know, the good work that we do. At the provincial level, I think it's always something that's beneficial to point out as well. I'm of the very firm belief that we value some things over other things. And my question is, why do we do that? And is it because it's hidden? So environmental value is hidden in healthcare cost, right? You have a better environment to live in, you're going to have decreased health costs. You're going to exercise more, that probably has a benefit on health cost as well as one example. So if we were to look at it from a more holistic standpoint, then maybe the emphasis that we put on healthcare, maybe if we look at the environment in a slightly different way, maybe that has equal value or a value that's higher than where it is currently. So I think trying to make that impression on the provincial government, for instance, the federal government, as well, I think is good. Like they've looked at, floodplain mapping now as an important program because it reduces insurance cost, right? And decreases the cost of emergency events, and that helps everyone. So that's why there's a bigger impression on that. And so sometimes I think it's a matter of, well, what's affecting health? What's affecting social services? And are there other things that can be looked at that have a really important piece? As Christy mentioned, the conservation land strategy, physical exercise and mental health are areas are a really important part of that. But I would say if we were to broaden that out, the environment that we live in, we're all animals, but we seem to forget that when we think about money and drive and, you know, like investments, probably like one of the biggest things, right? We want to make sure we have enough money for our kids, our families, retirement, those sorts of things. So that's the big focus, right? But in order to do those things, if you want to have a good life in retirement, you kind of need to have some other things in play at a base level that we kind of forget that we need good air to breathe, good water to drink. And if those aren't good, then actually the costs of cleaning those are going to be a lot higher. If you do what is it, Benjamin Franklin, he was the one that came up with an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. It's and if you work out the numbers, it's about 1 to 10. And that works out about right when you look at funding initially to having to repair something. And it can be higher than that too. So I think those, I think any time we can bend an ear for representative or the premier, even better, or a minister, then I think that's a good venue. AMO is a good.
Yeah.
Yeah, or any of those.
We did healthcare last time, but you know, maybe next time environment.
Thank you.
Okay,
I'd just like to make
Peter,
one comment.
yes.
Whenever you see a federal election, provincial election, US election, the environment's 20th or 30th issue on the list.
Yeah,
It never makes it to the top 4.
yeah, I know.
And
it's-
it should.
And yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so we have a motion. I need a mover and a seconder to receive that. Kriya, seconder Eric. All in favor? Carried. Okay. And we don't have any new business. Do we have anybody reports from directors? Yes, Jerry.
Through the chair, so last Thursday I got invited to a photo op fanfare thing at Sir Sanford Fleming in Peterborough. They're bringing in some new technology from Europe for wastewater treatment that's scalable and looks promising, and they got involved with a collaboration between the college and this company to try to lead the trades and technology division of the campus in Peterborough, which is tied closely to Lindsay here with Fleming. But they're going to tweak and try to get this okay for Ontario usage, which would mean standalone water treatment for wastewater rather than have to build great big costly facilities. It looks promising, it's scalable. Fortunately, I got there way early, so I got a chance to talk to the actual designer before all the important people showed up, and it turned out to be just clapping and talking, but it looks promising, and the school itself looks like they're eager to get into this and see if they can make it marketable.
Is there any information on this that maybe you can share?
I guess I could. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, that sounds really interesting.
I got invited, but it was nice that I got there early enough to talk to the guy that actually knew what was going on.
Yeah, cool. Okay,
We just had a proposal come through the Skewdale Council for a development with 600 units, totally self-contained with no sewers at all recycled water with a self-contained sewage system.
Well, the concept is gonna be theoretically that they're not promoting it as drinking water when it comes out, but it'll be able to be used for a multitude of purposes, agricultural, all that stuff is the goal. So yeah, there were some questions I had about that they didn't have answers for, but it looks like they're working towards it. I couldn't tell you the name of it right off the top of my head, but Michelle Ferrari was there, so it's got attention. It seems promising.
okay, neat. Anybody else have anything to share? Well, we actually in Kawartha Lakes got a grant for an environmental intern. So that's going to be really exciting. Starting, I think, in February. It's only for 6 months. It's paid.
Is that FCM?
No, it's, oh boy, it starts with M. No, it's not FCM, but it's another funder.
It's for this girl you stole from court.
No.
Just
No,
asking.
no, and it's for like 3 areas. I think Kawartha Lakes is one, there are 2 others. And so if you know of anybody who's young and eager and environmentally wants to learn more, the applications have to be in by the 31st of October. So do you have, I can send that to you if you wish.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I think the college is all over this already. Yeah, so I think the age group is from 18 to 30. So yeah. Yeah, so that's exciting and getting Jenna. We've been looking for an environmental officer for 3 years, so we have a healthy environment plan that's just been sitting on the shelf. So now we hopefully can get things rolling, so that's good. Yeah. Okay.
And Madam Chair,
Yes.
I have one item, in case anyone is interested, personal invite for any of the board members to participate in the Neon Nights Glow in the Dark Disc Golf Experience coming up this Tuesday at 6. In case anyone is interested, please let Christy know. And she'll hook you up, but should be a great event. This is tied to the funding that we got from City of Kawartha Lakes, I think it's the Chest Fund.
No, it's the backpacks.
The backpack program, yes.
We're piloting it this year with the support from the city. And then with the hope that, get some feedback as to what we did well, what we didn't do well, where we need to improve. And then launching it as an annual activity that we can run.
Cool. Great.
So if you're interested in being a VIP attending the event, please let Christy know if your schedule allows for it, or if you're interested, and be a chance to throw around a glow in the dark frisbee.
And just, it's not running for that full, like it is running for that full amount of time, but if you can only come out for a part of it, you just want to play a couple of holes, there's no expectation that you stay
What was
from
the
start to finish. It starts at 6 o'clock in the evening and then we'll have like regular tea times from there. So-
Are there any tripping risks or is it?
Always, there's tripping risks in there.
You're in the woods.
It's what makes it fun. So we have lights strung up that to like similar to what we have for our illuminated forest in the winter. So we have some lights strung up to show people where to go. All of the discs glow in the dark and we're
Jerry?
having different lights at different.
Sorry,
places. So,
somebody's speaking.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, we are looking to, with that eye, and trying to minimize.
For sure, yeah.
Well, I'm just imagining running to catch and tripping because it's.
Oh, no, you're not catching. It's just it's the golfing part.
You want to hit something, right?
Yeah.
You're okay with that?
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun. I did it years ago
Yeah.
at a friend's cottage and they had a whole, course. It was a lot of fun. Not in the dark, though. I haven't done it in the dark.
Water bottles, we've got, little glow in the dark bracelets and stuff, of the discs glow in the dark, so, yeah.
It's happening here.
Pardon me?
Happening
It's
here.
happening here.
It's happening here.
Of course, in this, I think.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
very-
cool. Okay, so can I have a motion to adjourn? Tracy, Eric, all in favor? Carried. Thanks, everybody.
Oh, you're welcome.